Hello again, friends. I realized after making my Barkle video that I ended up saying something pretty silly. I said my most recommended usage for Barkle was a high grade 3 deck, and that would have to be for Kagero, as they have the most high grade 3 synergy in the set 5 metagame. While true, this is of course absurd because any high grade 3 deck needs to run an increased amount of perfect guards to compensate for having too many grade 3s in hand. I also haven't forgotten that I regularly used set 4 ride chains to compensate for running skewed ratios. And while I wouldn't say I forgot that Kagero had such a ride chain, I certainly didn't make it clear in that video. So if you want to Morikawa in Vintage on release, there is absolutely a way to do it consistently while not having a deck that's entirely dookie. And that's with the Amber Dragon ride chain. The advantage of the ride chain is that it gives a direct +1 when you ride the grade 1, and this is going to secure your grade 2 ride. This makes every copy of your grade 1 effectively also a copy of your grade 2 on turn 1. This allows us to run a large amount of grade 3 units, albeit not quite as many as a Barkle deck could get away with. So we also have our grade 3 units for the deck, which would include Dragonic Waterfall. You can discard a grade 3 from hand and it swings for an absurd 23,000 power, 31k with a Bahr boost. An absolute beast of a unit and able to do a lot of pushing and pressure. We also have Sword Emperor, Dragonic Valblade. When you drive check a grade 3 Kagero, he gets 5,000 power. This means that both your triggers and your grade 3s count effectively as triggers for the purpose of breaking a 2 to pass, and you have 31 out of 49 of your cards that would count for hitting that 2 to pass. So this makes it a lot less safe for them to reliably 2 to pass you. I will say that Dragonic Waterfall is almost certainly just strictly better because swinging for 23k is going to force more shield out anyway. And this is really only better if you're trying to cheese. That being said, the cheese can be fun, and it has all the other synergy as well. And you can just ride over it, so it's not even that big of a problem because you have so many grade 3s. Also, we have Dragonic Gojo. When you drive check a grade 3 Kagero, you get to choose one of your opponent's grade 1 or less rear guards and retire it. And that's important because this can also snipe very annoying starters that you don't want them to continue to have on the board. And finishing up, I have a surprise tech card. Why is it a surprise? Well, I forgot that this promo was actually this early in the series. So that's why I originally recommended Dragonic Overlord, just so we could have something that would work on rearguard. But it turns out Dragonic Executioner is actually older in the original format than both Valblade and Waterfall. So we received Dragonic Executioner during Cavalry of Black Steel when Spectral Duke Dragon was released. It coincided with other 12k attacking promos like Marha's and Gigantech Destroyer when we originally received it, but it was actually released at the same pack as Cup Bowler, which was the very first Card Fight Pack Volume 1. So, yeah, Dragonic Executioner is going to be in the game. Why did I swap this in over Overlord? Well, honestly, I think Overlord having a cost of Counterblast 3 makes it entirely unreliable to trigger twice. And if they guard the first attack from it, it's basically just Counterblast 3, they discard a 10k shield. It's not the strongest effect if we're being entirely honest. I could hope to heal or run Bellicosity Dragon, which unflips when its attack hits a Vanguard, but it can only ever force 5k shield, even with a Bahr boost, against a cross ride, making it hitting the Vanguard specifically a lot less reliable. To make that even more dire, we have very, very few boosters in the deck, and half of them are only 6k, so he may very well be struggling against even 11k Vanguards. Conversely, the Executioner is hitting 18k with a 6k boost, which is exactly what we're looking for, because it's exactly like the other 12k attackers that are going to be running this set. So Overlord has his 12k attacker, Blaster has his, Tsukiyomi has hers, all of the set 4 ride chains, and Peanut Butter has 2. So this actually curbs a major weakness of the deck, and it can hit any Vanguard other than a cross ride unboosted as well. Obviously, if we had a Palamedes, we'd be running that. Dual Axe Archdragon was supposed to be Kagero's weaker variant of that effect. However, there's not a particularly consistent mechanism to ensure that we can keep 3 of their rearguard circles empty. Finally, the last tech card would be Berserk Dragon. He can actually function in a fairly typical way, being the sole usage of the counterblast that this deck uses, and he can also be used to attack into a rearguard, or he can even hit MLB with a 17k swing with a Bahr boost, since our Dragonic Executioner is going to be behind our Amber Dragon boosters. So he's also going to be pretty good at not just sniping those 12Ks with its effect, but he can also swing into those 12Ks as well which will give us a little bit more mitigation for the fact that this deck really just gets steamrolled by 20k swings. And honestly, for those matchups, this deck isn't remotely top tier. It basically auto-loses to Dragonic Overlord at the end because it's sniping the back rows and this deck barely has any. You could start calling triggers, but it's an absolute uphill battle regardless. It can do a bit better against the other three of the big four, and has a much easier time making numbers that can punish them, especially the 20k with Bahr Executioner against Soul Saver Dragon. However, all of these decks have fairly easy outs to making 20k, so that will be reciprocated, and this deck has less average shield due to the high quantity of grade 3s. That being said, again, this is just a deck that you could play if you want a Morikawa and have a good time, and I think this deck provides that good time incredibly well. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one.